How's it going, everyone? It is me, the Lone Vault Wanderer, here with another video about Bioshock that could be nice and juicy for you Bioshock fans out there, especially those of you that are clamoring for another Bioshock game, or at least news with regards to the next Bioshock game. And I think I have something fairly concrete, although I do need to say at the outset that, of course, none of this is 100% confirmed, none of this is 100% official, so please do take it with a grain of salt. But I will explain my reasoning, I will explain the research that I've done, and hopefully I can get some of you on board in terms of the conclusions that I'm making. So, where do I start? Let's go back to about a month ago to a video I created called Bioshock 3 Everything We Know. Essentially there in that video, I tried to explain as much as we knew about the next Bioshock game as possible, and I tracked the major news with regards to Bioshock, pretty much from the moment that Irrational Games wound down, where Ken Levine left the studio, etc., and created something different called Ghost Story Games, and I simply looked at everything beyond that point to see what could we draw, what conclusions could we draw about the next Bioshock game's development, if it was being made, who it was being made by, when we could see it, etc. If you want to see that video, I'll be linking it in the description below, but I am going to summarize the major points in this video first, so you don't have to click on that video and then come back to this one. And by the end of this, you'll see why I'm concluding that the studio that's likely to be working on the next Bioshock game is Hangar 13, the development studio behind Mafia 3. But let's explain all of my research and reasoning right now. Alrighty, look on the screen, essentially this timeline, this chronological timeline of major events with regards to Bioshock and 2K and Take-Two. On October 2013, 2K Marin underwent staff reductions, and some sources say the studio was closed entirely. This piece of news is going to be more relevant later on, but I do need to mention it because it's the earliest thing in this timeline. And of course, 2K Marin was the studio that worked on Bioshock 2, so let's bear that in mind. Then in February of 2014, of course, Irrational Games wound down, with Ken Levine starting a smaller team within Take-Two, now called Ghost Story Games, and it was confirmed through numerous interviews that he would not be working on the next Bioshock game. In May 2014, Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick, which of course is the parent company of 2K, the publisher of the Bioshock franchise, stated the following: "We think Bioshock is important and certainly something that we're focused on. Something 2K Marin will be responsible for shepherding going forward." Now keep that in mind. He said 2K Marin will be responsible for shepherding going forward. However, there were those reports the year preceding where 2K Marin actually underwent staff reductions and seemingly closed down. So at that stage, we had some indication from Strauss Zelnick that there was a 2K Marin of sorts, but you'll see how that studio kind of drops from the conversation as the years go on. So let's move on to December 2014, where Take-Two announces a new studio, Hangar 13, which developed, of course, the recent Mafia 3 and included veteran developers from 2K Marin. This kind of leads credence to the fact that 2K Marin did shut down, or at least lost a lot of staff because some of the developers moved on to Hangar 13. So then on to May 2015, Strauss Zelnick again states that Bioshock is a really important intellectual property for the company, and while he doesn't have any announcements to make, yes, it's still a really important franchise for them. A lot of the stuff that Strauss Zelnick is saying is pretty much confirming that there will be a new Bioshock game coming in the future sometime. We already knew that, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that we will see another Bioshock game, but the purpose of this video is to figure out who the hell's developing it. Right? And again, I think I've got an answer for you. So in November of 2015, Strauss Zelnick again stated that the franchise is in the hands of 2K. He did not say 2K Marin, alright? So at this stage, I think we can all but confirm that 2K Marin, if it does exist, it's not working on Bioshock, but it probably doesn't exist. That's the conclusion that I'm drawing. Strauss continues by saying that they'll make announcements in due time about any upcoming releases, but Bioshock is unquestionably a permanent franchise in our company, and one that we do believe in. And then in September of 2016, we saw the release of Bioshock The Collection, which was developed not by 2K Marin, I want to stress that, but by Blind Squirrel Games. And of course, Bioshock The Collection was a remaster of Bioshocks 1, 2, and Infinite. So by the end of this timeline, we can reach the conclusion again that another Bioshock will be coming sometime in the future. The game was originally in the hands of 2K Marin, but after a studio reduction and stuff being let go, there is no more 2K Marin, so the actual developer of the next Bioshock game is officially unconfirmed and unknown at this stage. But let me explain to you why I believe strongly that the next studio that's going to be working on the next Bioshock game is in fact going to be Hangar 13. I could be wrong on this, but I got a bunch of news and research to back me up, so hear me out here. First of all, as I mentioned before, Hangar 13 has developers within the studio that have experience working on Bioshock, namely those developers within 2K Marin that worked on Bioshock 2. However, it doesn't end there. If you do a bit of a search on LinkedIn, and I found LinkedIn has just been great for my videos, it really has. If you search on LinkedIn for Hangar 13 and Bioshock in the search terms, and you filter to people, you'll see about 18 results there. And when you click onto each of their individual LinkedIn profiles, I won't include names for obvious reasons, but most of those people have indicated that they're currently at Hangar 13, right? And they've worked at Irrational Games in the past on Bioshock Infinite. So let me emphasize here, when 2K Marin and Irrational Games closed down, those developers had to go somewhere. It seems like a number of those developers from 2K Marin and Irrational Games have moved on to Hangar 13. So we have, at that studio, Hangar 13, a bunch of developers that worked on Bioshock Infinite and Bioshock 2. Is it any coincidence that a lot of the developers that worked on the Bioshock franchise throughout the years that were at 2K Studios that closed down have somehow ended up at the same development studio in the form of Hangar 13? I think that that was for a reason. Of course, they were within 2K, they were made redundant. 2K/Take-Two obviously wanted to bring that back because they were skilled developers, etc. And I guess they probably feel like they owed them something. But I think it means a little bit more than that when you have a bunch of developers that have experience working on Bioshock games in the past. We've heard Strauss Zelnick say that they're going to be creating another Bioshock game, and we saw Bioshock the Collection kind of prepare us for another Bioshock game. If there's any studio within the 2K or Take-Two family that had the skills, experience, and capability to create the next Bioshock game, I sure as hell would be picking the one that has developers that worked on Bioshock Infinite and Bioshock 2. Any day of the week. Regardless of whether Mafia 3 was a letdown or not, or was just an average game, that experience is second to none. But I am not done yet, okay? I got more research and news for you. Hangar 13 actually merged with 2K Czech. This was something that received no announcement. It was literally a tweet from Hangar 13 itself to say that 2K Czech has actually been brought in within the Hangar 13 family. Now, according to Wikipedia, as at 2016, Hangar 13 had about 150 developers, right? At 2015, 2K Czech had about 66 developers. They had way more than that when they developed games such as Topspin 4 and Mafia 2, but they seem to have downsized and they did help with the development of Mafia 3. But now, those, let's say 50 to 60 developers, whatever it is, those developers have now merged within Hangar 13. So arguably, Hangar 13 is now a studio that's 200 developers strong. The studio has 200 developers. They're not going to be creating a small game of sorts. They're not going to be creating a game that's nothing. You've got a development studio there that's really large. I mean, over 200 staff. In the grand scheme of things, it's not one of the largest studios out there, but it's still pretty beefy. It's still probably around the size that you would expect a studio that's working on Bioshock to be. And then here's the kicker. Hangar 13 has just tweeted out that they're hiring aggressively for both their Czech Republic studio and their Novato, California studio. They're hiring 17 developers, from a system administrator to a system programmer, character artist, cutscenes programmer, junior programmer, physics engineer, systems engineer, 3D environment artist, animation engineer, engine programmer, and the list goes on and on. Now look, this might be a lot of anecdotal and I'm clutching at straws arguments here, but Hangar 13 is a studio that has staff that worked on the previous Bioshock games, that has finished up pretty much on Mafia 3 DLC. There might be some more DLC coming down the line, but they've done the bulk of the game. They've incorporated 2K Czech, which at least had over 50 staff there, and now they're hiring more for each of those studios, 17 positions in fact. Are you telling me that this studio is not ramping up for a new game of some sort? It is obviously clear that that is happening, and if we draw any conclusions from this video, at the very least, it's that Hangar 13 is working on something new because they've incorporated 50 staff and they're hiring more. They must be doing something big because you do not see random staff hires at a development studio unless they're working on a big game. Usually you see staff dwindle after a big game is finished, and then when they start pre-production and then production and full development, they gradually hire more staff. It happens all the time. So even if you don't believe me that this studio is working on the next Bioshock game, at least believe me that they're working working on something, and then look at Take-Two's catalog of games, or 2K's catalog of games, and what else do we have? What else do we have in terms of a game that already doesn't have a pre-designated studio? For instance, Borderlands already has Gearbox software. XCOM is in the hands of Firaxis Games. WWE 2K is being developed by Ukeys and Visual Concepts. And NBA 2K is being created by Virtuos Visual Concepts and 2K China. What other big game by 2K has been confirmed to be getting a release sometime in the future, but does not have a development studio attached to it? I cannot possibly think of any other franchise other than Bioshock. I mean, even if we extend out to Take-Two as a bigger publisher, although Bioshock is published by 2K, Red Dead Redemption is in the hands of Rockstar. Civilization is in the hands of Firaxis Games and Aspyr. Kerbal Space Program in the hands of Squad. Agent in the hands of Rockstar North. Bully is probably in the hands of Rockstar too. I just can't think of any. I honestly cannot think of any. If you can, let me know in the comments below. Let me know that I'm crazy and tell me, haha, alone, there's this other studio that's probably working on Bioshock. But I strongly believe all of the evidence and research is pointing to Hangar 13. Especially because Mafia 3 is pretty much finished up. So anyways, Wastelanders, let me know what you think about this news topic in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and people telling me I'm crazy, because I am. And until next time, this has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourself, and would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.